What's up guys, welcome back to my channel. In today's video I'm going to be doing an in-depth tutorial of how to use my annual financial goal tracking spreadsheet. Now if you're watching this video because you already purchased the spreadsheet, then thank you so much for your purchase. I really appreciate it and I hope you find this tutorial helpful and get a lot of value out of the spreadsheet. If you're watching the video because you have not purchased it yet and you're interested in doing so, then the link to my Etsy shop is in the description for this video, and you will find that along with the other personal finance products that I sell on my Etsy shop. And this spreadsheet in particular is an instant download to Google Sheets, and so if you purchase it, you can download it instantly and get started using it right away. I originally created this spreadsheet because my husband and I started setting multiple financial goals. At first we were just working on debt payoff when we started focusing on improving our finances, but then we decided we really wanted to put some more money towards retirement. We wanted to beef up our emergency fund, we wanted to save money for my daughter's college savings, and we had multiple debts we were paying towards. So it got very confusing very fast to try to keep track of what we were doing each month towards each goal. And so I created this spreadsheet for our use to be able to keep track of all those things. And now I'm really excited to have it available for you guys to purchase so you can do the same with your finances. If you have multiple financial goals that you're trying to keep track of and see how far you are in accomplishing those goals, are you behind, are you ahead, do you want to focus on one for a couple months and then switch to another, and kind of keeping all that straight, this spreadsheet makes it really easy, simple, and organized to keep track of all the progress you're making on your different financial goals. So without further ado, let's jump into the tutorial.
So when you open the spreadsheet, this is what it looks like, and I know it's very small right now. I'm going to zoom in, but I just want to give you an overview of what it looks like when you first open it. It is an instant download to Google Sheets, so as soon as you purchase it, you can download it and start working on it right away. There are a few sections to the spreadsheet. The first is the income section right up here. Next is the retirement/savings section. Then scrolling down a little bit, you've got debt, and finally expenses. So any place in the spreadsheet where you see a number or an error message in the box, that means you are not going to enter anything into those boxes because they have formulas, and so you don't want to mess them up. The only exception is right here. You are going to fill that in, and then in this column A, you're going to fill in the different names of your accounts. So zooming in a bunch, you can see here you put your annual financial goal tracking year. So let's say we're doing this for 2021. We're going to put 2021 in there. And you'll notice that there's months across the top, and this first column is frozen. So if you go like this and scroll over, you will be able to see what the first column says no matter what month you're looking at. So for purposes of getting this spreadsheet set up, I'm going to scroll all the way over like this so we can see what our goals are that we're going to set, and we can put in all of our paychecks and savings goals and all that. So the way I like to do it, and you can do it whatever way makes sense to you, but the way I like to do it is break it out by job and by paycheck. So let's say I have a job that I get paid every 2 weeks. Most months I'm only going to get 2 paychecks, but some months I'll get 3 if there's a longer month and the pay periods line up that way. So for example, I've got job 1, which let's say that's my job, and I've got usually 2 paychecks, but sometimes a 3rd paycheck. I would put 3, lines for paychecks for me. And then let's say my husband also has a job where he gets paid every other week, which he does in fact. Then he usually gets 2 paychecks, but sometimes he gets a 3rd paycheck. So for my job, I've got 3 lines because I can have up to 3 paychecks per month. And for him, 3 lines as well, because it's up to 3 paychecks per month for him. And the reason I do this is because this spreadsheet works by the month. Each month you put in the amount you brought in income, and you line up the entries with whatever sort of income it was, and that way you can see all the income you brought in for each month. The main point of the spreadsheet is to track how much of your income is going to savings and debt each month, and so we need to track the income by month. So that's how I set it up. Then over here we've got miscellaneous income. So let's say we've got a side hustle that we do. That would go in that spot. And then, miscellaneous income number 2 here. Let's say you get money for your birthday or Christmas or something, you might put it in that section. If you need more lines, then you can just right click and hit insert row, and that will give you more lines. You will need to copy this formula. So if you just go to the one above it or below it and hit Control Copy and then hit Control Paste, it will copy the formula in there to make sure that all your numbers are adding up. But it's just as simple as that if you need to add more rows. If you add a new row, you want to make sure it's in the middle of the section, not the very top or bottom, so it doesn't mess up the formula. And then let's say it was the case where you really only had, one person working and they get maybe 3 paychecks in a month at most. And then other than that, you've got some miscellaneous income sometimes, but you don't need all these other lines. You can go ahead and highlight these. You right click and you hit hide rows, and that way those rows that you don't need, we'll hide this one too. Those rows that you don't need are hidden, but you hide them because then we ensure we don't mess up any of the formulas versus just deleting them. It's just a little easier. So in the example that I'm doing, this household has 2 jobs that they each get up to 3 paychecks per month, side hustle income, and some miscellaneous income. So let's set some goals. So for job 1, I just put the total goal for the year, and these are yearly goals. So what is the goal for the next 12 months? Or if you're starting this mid-year, I guess you could do, what is the goal for the period of time for the rest of the year you are planning to do this. But I would recommend, even if you're starting this mid-year, to go back and try to recreate what happened in the prior months and do it on the calendar year so you can kind of see year over year how you're doing. So for the first job, even though there's 3 paychecks that they can potentially get, I just put the goal for the year for that job in the first, in like the top slot for that job. So for the first job, let's say the person wants to make $26,000 for the year. And then for job 2, let's say they want to make $39,000. And goal setting is a whole other topic. So, how you set these goals is really up to you, but I'd say do it based on what's realistic and go off of what you made last year plus maybe a little bit. Next, we've got side hustle income. So we have a goal of $5,000 for side hustle income, and that gets us to a total of $70,000. So for this household, their goal is $70,000 of total income for the year. And note that this is gross pay. So that means before taxes, before insurance, before anything comes out of your paycheck, what is the goal to make for the year? Okay, so next we're going to look at the retirement and savings section. So for this family, they've got a couple retirement accounts. They've got one 401k through work. They've got a Roth IRA for one spouse, and then they've also got a Roth IRA for a second spouse. Those are all the retirement accounts that they have. And then for savings, they've got an emergency fund they're working towards and a second emergency fund. And the rest of these they don't need, so we can highlight these, right click, and hit hide rows. Now, before we start setting goals for the retirement, savings, and debt, we want to think about what percentage of our income we are hoping to put towards those goals. So that's something I recommend you kind of, you can play around with the numbers a little bit when you're thinking about setting it. It could be 10%, it could be 50%. It really depends on how aggressive you want to be. So in this example, I am going to say we want to put 25% towards savings and debt. So you can see here we've got percent to savings and debt, and it's blank percent or more. So right in this box, we're going to put 25% or more goes to savings or debt, which means 75% or less is going to go to expenses. So now that we've decided the percentages, we can go back up here and figure out what is 25% of 70,000. So if you take 70,000 times 0.25, you get 17,500. So what we know now is between this retirement and savings section and debt section, we want a total for our goals of 17,500. So looking at the retirement and savings section. For the 401k, the family's goal is to contribute $4,000. For the Roth IRA, they want to contribute $1,500 to each of their Roths. And then for the emergency fund, they've decided they want to increase their emergency fund, and then this is in a checking account buffer in emergency fund 2, they want to increase that checking account buffer by $300. So now we're at $9,300, and like we said, 25% of that $70,000 is $17,500. So we take $17,500 and we subtract $9,300 and we get $8,200. So now we know that in this debt section, the total for the goals should be $8,200. So let's first of all fill in the different debts that we have here. So for this family, they've got credit card 1, car loan, and student loan. So we don't know by the spreadsheet what the balances of these debts are, but we do know what their goals are for debt payoff for the year, because we're going to set them right here. So for the credit card, we want to pay $4,800. And remember, we're trying to get to $8,200 right here. And then for the car loan, they want to pay $3,100. And then for the student loan, the goal is to pay $300. So the credit card is the priority, and then the car loan has the next largest amount, and then the student loan. And they only have 3 debts in this family, so we can just hide these. Again, if you want to add more debts, you can hit right click and hit insert row, and then you can add another row. Like we talked about before, you will want to copy paste this formula, and you will need to copy paste this formula as well. So you want to make sure that you have all your formulas in, for each row the same, so you can make sure your totals add up correctly. All right, but let's undo that because we don't need that debt for this example, and we're going to hide these because we don't need any of these, so we're going to hide rows. So now we're $8,200 for our total goal for our debt payments for the year, and $9,300 here. So that adds up to our $17,500 that we were trying to hit. So we hit that goal of using 25% of our income to retirement and savings. So now to finish setting up our goals for our spreadsheet, the last section is this expenses section. So what we need to do is calculate what is 75% of 70,000. So take 70,000 and times it by 0.75 and we get 52,500. So we're going to put our goal here is 52,500 to spend for expenses. Now if you want, you can double check it and just say what's 52,500 plus 8,200 plus 9,300, and that gets us to 70,000. So we've just double checked that we've allocated all of our income to the correct categories. Okay, now our spreadsheet is set up and we are ready to start filling it out. So I'm going to zoom out like this, and I'm actually going to go ahead and hide these columns just so we can see what's going on a little bit easier. So I've just hidden April through December, but you can see January, February, and March still. You can see what the year-to-date totals are, you can see what our goals are, and you can see the percent of goal completed. So let's start filling this out so you can see how this works. So in January, we get the following paychecks: 2 paychecks for job 1, and for job 2, also get 2 paychecks. And then that is all the income that comes in January. So in January, as the income comes in throughout the month, there are various payments made to the different financial goals. So first of all, $333 comes out of one of their paychecks for that 401k contribution, and then they put $125 towards Roth IRA for spouse 1 and $100 to Roth IRA for spouse 2. They also put $75 into the emergency fund and $25 into emergency fund number 2. So you can see out of the $5,000, $658 went towards retirement and savings goals for January. Next, for debt payments, they make a $500 payment towards the credit card debt. They make a $300 car payment and $25 payment towards student loans. So that's a total of $825 for the month. Now for expenses, you'll see it automatically calculates based on what you've put in, because you've given your income and you've entered what has been contributed to retirement, savings, and debt, And so it automatically calculates how much you spent that month on expenses. Now there's this box here for taxes, and so this is expenses excluding taxes. And what I like to do is I like to break it out and see how much of that was actual money that I spent and how much was money that just came out of my paycheck as taxes and withholdings from my paycheck. So if you go to your pay stub and you look for what taxes came out of your paycheck, then you can enter this number here. Obviously, there were 4 paychecks this month, so you need to do it for each paycheck. It's a little easier if you make salary because your paycheck's going to be the same each time. And you can, pretty much know what that amount's going to be. It's consistent. But if you don't, you have to look at each pay stub. And even then, I'd suggest looking at each pay stub to double check that you can see exactly what the taxes were. So let's say that out of all that income, let's say $1,200 was taxes. You can see that actual expenses, what they spent on, rent and groceries and gas and everything else, health insurance for that month was $2,317. $1,200 of that was taxes, for a total of $3,517 spent for the month. So you don't have to do the taxes, but I think it's helpful because maybe $3,500, it seems like, well, we didn't spend $3,500 this month, but then you realize $1,200 of it was taxes, and then you get a better sense for how much you're actually spending. So now you can see down here, we've got this percent to savings and debt and percent to expenses, and we've set our goals over here. So you can see that the goal was to put at least 25% or more for the year to savings and debt. And this month, the family did really well. They put 30%, so they're ahead of goal, and only 70% of the income went towards expenses. So this was a good month, and they're on track. So let's do the next month. So February income looks a lot like January income in this example. We've got 2 paychecks each for them, but this month, one of them made $250 in side hustle income. So we've got $5,250 in income for the month. So for retirement and savings, we've got another $333 that came out of one of their paychecks, and then another $125 contribution to one Roth IRA and $100 to the other one. Emergency fund got $75, and emergency fund 2 got $0. So the total contributions to retirement and savings is $633 for the month. Now that you can see that we've put in a couple months, you can also see what percent of the goal has been completed. So there are 12 months in the year, so you can kind of estimate about what percent of the goal should be completed by each month. So for February, we're 2 months into the year out of 12 months. So the goal percent completed, if you were on track, would be about 16.5%. And so you can see here for income, they're at 15%. For these 2 goals, they're at 17%. And here, down here, we're at 8%. But total for the total retirement and savings section, they're at 14%. So 14% when it should be at 16%. You can kind of gauge, are you on track to hit your goals by the end of the year? Do you need to pick up the pace? The other thing you'll notice is this year-to-date column adds the totals of what you've done thus far. So you can see here at the end of February, they've made $10,250 out of the $70,000 they're looking to make. And you can see here, for the year to date, they've contributed $1,291 towards retirement and savings out of the $9,300 goal. So not only does it have the percentages, but it also has the year-to-date totals, so you can see in the actual numbers how much have you contributed towards that goal. All right, so looking at the debt payments, they're going to put a $1,000 payment towards their credit card, and then their $300 car payment, and $25 to student loans, for a total of $1,325 towards debt that month. You can see now they're way ahead of goal because, like we said, February you would want to be like 17% of the way towards your goal for the year, and they're at 26% now. So they're ahead for debt, but they're behind for savings. So, kind of looking at maybe next month they want to put a little more towards their savings goals and not so much towards the debt goals, or maybe they're trying to get the debt goals done first because that's the priority and focus on the savings more after their debt goals have been accomplished, but still, work on savings throughout the year. Figuring out all those things is why this spreadsheet is really helpful, because when you have multiple financial goals, you may want to make one a priority, and so you put, a bigger percentage of your extra money towards your debt goals, but you're still working on the savings goals. And so it keeps everything really organized, and you can see how you're prioritizing all these different financial goals as you go throughout the year. All right, so here for their month, they put 37% of their income towards savings and debt and 63% towards expenses. So year to date, they've got 34% going to savings and debt and 66% going to expenses. So they're really ahead of schedule. They're starting out the year really good and ahead of their goals. So I'm going to go ahead and fill out the rest of this spreadsheet so you can see what it looks like at the end of the year. All right, so now the spreadsheet is all filled in for the year. You can see all of the months have been completed, and so we can do some analysis on how this family did for the year. So for job one, you can see they got, their 2 paychecks every single month. Plus there were a couple months, April and October, where they got a 3rd paycheck. For job 2, again, they got paid every single month 2 paychecks, plus they had 2 months where they got a 3rd paycheck, so those months had a little bit higher income. Side hustle income was a little sporadic. Some months they did really well, some months they made nothing. And then miscellaneous income, there was some birthday money that came in and Christmas money in December, so they included that in here. So let's scroll over so we can see the year to date. So year to date, they made $68,300 and the goal was to make $70,000. So they completed 98% of that goal, which is great. They got really close to accomplishing their total income goal for the year. Now looking at retirement, they made pretty consistent payments all throughout the months. There were some months where they missed a contribution or decided to make some other thing a priority, so they didn't put anything into one of their retirement accounts. But overall, they were pretty consistent, contributing around between $600 or $500, $600, $800 one month to retirement and savings. So again, scrolling over and looking at the year to date, they contributed $4,000 to 401k, and that was the goal, $4,000. So they hit 100% of goal for that account. For the Roth IRA, they contributed $1,500 for spouse 1, and they hit that goal. So that was 100% of goal. For spouse 2, though, they only contributed $1,000 of the $1,500 goal, but it's better than not doing anything, and so they got to 67% of that goal, so 2/3 of that goal, basically. For the emergency fund, they contributed $1,250 and wanted to do $2,000, so again, they didn't quite hit that goal. And then the $300 emergency fund, number 2, for their checking account buffer, they did, increase that by $300 and hit 100% of that goal. So for the retirement/savings goals, they hit $8,050 out of their $9,300 goal, which is 87% of the way to that goal. Next, looking at the debt section, so you can see here they paid payments towards credit card 1, and in this example I have them paying it off in September, and that's why there's no more payments for the rest of the year. For the car loan, they also paid their monthly payment, and that loan was almost paid off as well, so they paid a little bit extra that last month after they paid off the credit card, but after that they didn't make any more payments for the rest of the year. And then for the student loan, they just made their regular $25 payment the whole year. So scrolling over to look at our year-to-date goals for the debt payments, you can see here, if you just look at the percent of goal completed, these were all exactly on target, 100%. So while they didn't hit all their retirement and savings goals, it was because they wanted to make sure they hit all their debt goals, and then the retirement/savings was kind of second priority. And so that's how they, managed their goals this year. And then finally, looking at the total expenses, they wanted to spend $52,500 on expenses. They spent $52,050, and so that was 99% of goal. And for this section, you want to be under 100% or at 100%. If this number is more than 100%, then you spent more than what your goal was, and so you overspent for the year. So despite not having hit their savings goal, they also spent less than they had planned to, and that's because, if you remember, the income didn't quite meet the goal, so they weren't able to accomplish everything, but they did a really good job here. And so just to kind of look at how this percent to savings and debt works, the goal was to put 25% or more into savings or debt. So you can see some months they were ahead, some months they were behind, some months they were, pretty close on track, and some months they were really, really off. So I put, like, in December, maybe they spent a lot of money on Christmas, and that's something they wanted to treat themselves to. So it was really off. But if you, again, scroll over and look at the year to date, when it all averages out, they did put 24% towards savings and debt and only 76% towards their expenses. So they were a little bit shy of their goal, but they were really, really close, even though they had some months that were way, way, way off, like December. Now, I meant to say this at the beginning, but when you first get your spreadsheet, there's going to be this blank template, and what you might want to do is right-click and hit duplicate. So you're working off a copy of the template. That way, if you mess up the template, you can always go back and make a copy and, from the original. And then after your first year, what I would recommend is you would duplicate that one and just delete out all of your numbers. And then as you go to set your goals, you can see, so let's say we're doing this for 2022 now. And so as you go to set your goals, you say, okay, our goal was for me to make $26,000 last year. Let me bump that up to $28,000. Okay. And this goal was 39. Let's bump that up to 42,000. And let's really try to work hard on our side hustle income and bump that up to 10,000. So now instead of 70,000, we want to make 80,000 for the year. And then as you, set these other goals, you need to recalculate again, what's 25% of 80,000, which is 20,000, because 80,000 times 0.25 or divided by 4 is 20,000. So if you're still doing, 25% of your income, you want to go towards your financial goals, then $20,000 is what you'd want this number and this number to total to. But let's say you want to be a little more aggressive. Let's say you want all of that extra income to go towards your financial goals. Let's say you want 35% of your income now to go towards those financial goals. You would do 80,000 times 0.35, figure out what that is, and then allocate that amount to these two sections. So 80,000 times 0.35, which is 35%, is 28,000. So between these two numbers, you need to set goals of 28,000. If you meet those goals, that's going to get you to hitting that 35% of your income going towards your financial goals for the next year. So as time goes on and your income changes and your life changes and your expenses change, you may adjust that percentage. At first, when you've got a lot of debt, you may not be putting a lot of money into retirement and savings. And then as you pay off debt, then maybe you're ramping up your retirement and savings goals a lot. Or you want to put 15% of your income towards retirement and savings no matter what. So of your 80,000, you're always putting 15%. So you want to have this hit 12,000. And then whatever's left over, you're putting towards debt. So you can prioritize your goals however you want, depending on what works for your family. Personal finance is personal, so everyone should set their goals on what makes sense for them. Some people don't want to contribute anything to retirement until they've paid off all their debt. Some people want to contribute a little bit. Some people want to split it. And sometimes your goals change mid-year too. And so you can readjust and see, maybe you got a big raise and so you want to adjust this. Or maybe somebody quit their job or got laid off. And so again, you have to adjust these goals. But this is a way where you can really lay them all out and keep them organized. So you're intentional with what you're doing with your money and you're intentional with what your goals are. And because rather than just, throwing money haphazardly to different goals and not really keeping track of what is the priority, this allows you to prioritize and track your progress all throughout the year.
So that is it for the tutorial. I hope you guys found that helpful. If you have any questions about how to use this spreadsheet, feel free to message me on Etsy if you've made a purchase or comment below on this video and I'll try to get back to you as soon as I can to answer any questions that you have. This spreadsheet has been such a helpful tool to my husband and I as we're trying to set various financial goals and track them all and keep everything straight as we make progress towards each goal. And so if you have multiple financial goals that you are trying to accomplish this year, then I'd highly recommend this spreadsheet. It has been a wonderful, helpful thing for us and it keeps everything very organized. You can see exactly where you're at in your progress and helps you not get confused on where you should be putting your money each month and how close you are to accomplishing the goals that you set.